Hey, y'all. On today's podcast, we help Lori start an online business.
Welcome to the Flip Lifestyle Podcast, where life always comes before work. We're your hosts, Shane and Jocelyn Sams. We're a real family that figured out how to make our entire living online. And now, we help other families do the same. Are you ready to flip your life? All right, let's get started. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Flipped Lifestyle Podcast. It is great to be back with you again today. Super excited because we've got a guest from the Flip Your Life community, an actual member inside of our community who is starting their online journey. They are starting an online business, and we wanted to talk to her right as she's getting ready to get out there and right as she's ready to launch this thing into the world, so that you guys out there who are listening, who are also starting an online business, kind of listen in and bust through some of those fears, overcome some of those obstacles, and take your next steps as well. Our guest today is Flip Your Life community member, Lori Pine. How you doing, Lori?
I'm doing great. Good morning.
Good morning. We're really happy to have you here today and to help you get started on this journey. And I understand that, you've gone through a lot of different things in your life. And because of that, I think that it's going to make it even more sweeter, I guess you would say. No, that's
more
probably
sweeter.
That's probably not correct English. It will make it sweeter once you reach that finish line, because you've gone through all of these different kinds of things. So go ahead and tell our audience a little bit about you, your background, and what you are starting online.
Well, I have been in the legal field for 30 years. I started it when I was 2 years old. You understand that, of course.
Right.
And while I was being an amazing paralegal supporting my attorneys, I ended up having an amazing son who came into the world with, oh my goodness, a handful of challenges. And at that time, I was able to find angels, truthfully angels, who helped me help him, my family, my friends. I met therapists and doctors, nurses, all of who helped him become the miracle baby he is. He's now 18 years old, and we're getting ready for the next change, which is being an adult when you're 6 foot tall and 5 years old developmentally.
How? What happened? What happened when he was born?
He was born. They detected a problem. Actually, when I was 18 weeks gestation, which I don't know if you guys know how tiny your heart is at that point. I don't even think it's the size of like an almond. But they saw something. Then they took another peek and did another test when I was 24 weeks. And my son was assigned a pediatric cardiologist at that point. He had a heart defect.
Oh, no.
He has a pulmonary valve that wasn't working right. His pulmonary artery was not pumping in, was too small, so he wasn't getting enough blood. And they anticipated birth and then surgery. He had to be 5 pounds, 1 ounce to be able to have surgery. And he was born exactly at 5 pounds, 1 ounce. But he fooled them. He's a tough little guy. He was able to make it to 4 months before he had to have his surgery. He was a bruiser at 10 pounds. And at birth, he had oxygen deprivation. And at his surgery, 9 hours afterwards, when it finished, his heart stopped. It had never worked that hard, never had that much blood flowing. And our doctors are amazing, I have to tell you. His recovery room was a mini operating. So they operated on him, his second heart surgery, in the recovery room he was in at the hospital. And it was very odd. It's a little graphic, so sorry for anybody who's a little queasy. But they left him open in case his heart had more problems, and they just covered him with a plastic sheet. And they had him obviously sedated so he wouldn't move. And I was not allowed to talk around him because everyone else could talk and he would ignore them. But he'd been hearing my voice his whole little bitty life. And he struggled to try and get to me out of the sedation. So anyone who knows me, I'm a little chatty person. And I had to sit there with him in that state without saying a word.
Wow.
Wow.
That is an unbelievable story. We were talking off air, and I actually have we have a heart kit in our we call them heart kids because they're like, the heart community is amazing. Like it's this whole other world of people whose children have had heart surgery, have had heart defects at birth, and they just know everything about the human body. It's unbelievable talking to the heart moms. But my brother called me and the same thing happened, not the exact same condition, but like he turned purple. And then they had to have heart surgery like 2 days later. And like we went up there and he had all these tubes attached to him. And, his chest was cut open. And I couldn't even fathom it being his uncle, let alone being the parent. Right. And just to overcome something like that, it kind of puts everything else in perspective, like life, business, and moving forward and things like that, doesn't it?
Absolutely. In fact, I have a life motto, if you will. When he came into my world, how do they call it? Mature mom. I was a little older when I had him. And I know in my heart of hearts that he is going to live longer than I am. And he will always need to have somebody help him. So my goal was to make sure that he thrives when I am gone. And people find that a little morbid, and I don't understand it. It's reality. Yeah. The opposite is for him not to live longer than me. And that is every parent's nightmare.
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. How did his condition and having to just be a parent to a kid with special needs, how did that influence your decision to get into online business?
Well, I had thought that as he got older, I don't know why, I never consulted with anyone. I just was under the impression that once we got past the scary start, we weren't sure he was going to make it, then the helping him be able to do the basics, eat, walk, talk, then school, what could he do? It would get easier. And in a way, it's more complicated. It's not as scary. The beginning was just scary. But I have to help him become the most independent person he can be in our community. And I know people have very strong feelings about schools and how they take care of our kids and all that. But I have to tell you, other than a few less than great people, I've had amazing help through our school district. They take such good care of my son. They help me become the best mom I can be. All the therapists work with me, the teachers. But once he's out, it's us. And there is a community. We're in California, and I think all states have it. We have a resource. But I have to be more available to him to help him become the best him he can be.
So basically, you've been a paralegal for all this time, right? Are you still a paralegal?
I am.
Okay. And you're trying to just transition out of that 9-to-5 lifestyle because up until this point, you've had the support of the school system. But exactly. As he ages out of that, you don't have that exact support network anymore. So exactly. You're going to have to pick something more flexible because if you don't, then you're not going to be available when he needs you, basically. Because maybe you do find some help, but it's from 1 to 4. What are you going to do in the morning from 9 to 12 or something like that?
Well, and I'll be honest, right now, and all the men in your audience will understand what I'm saying. I have an 18-year-old in body and a 5-year-old. And 5-year-olds have temper tantrums.
Yeah.
And so finding help that you aren't trained, the school trains people.
Yeah.
It's very difficult. So we basically have our family, us and our family. My mom is amazing. She's been there every step of the journey, like a great mom would. But up until recently, we've been able to hire somebody to help us. And he's going through a really tough change with his hormones and wanting to do things and literally not being able to. And he takes his frustrations out sometimes in scary ways. Imagine a 6 foot tall, I'm 5'6", a 6 foot tall person having a 5-year-old temper tantrum.
Yeah.
So that's one of the reasons I need to be there.
It's an unbelievable reason. It's just an amazing reason to have that kind of motivation to start this online business. Like we get caught up when we think about why we want to start an online business. Like, we do want to maybe quit our job because of a bad boss. Maybe it's because you want to travel more. Maybe it's because you want to homeschool your kids. And sometimes it's because, man, I need to be there for someone that needs me. And this is the path that can get me there, and the path I'm on won't get me there. So you have to make a change. And I'm sure there's people out there listening right now to the Flip Lifestyle podcast that have kids with special needs that are motivated by this, because maybe, they think, well, I've got to work, I got to make some money, I got to do this, I got to do that. But like, it's not just about your dreams sometimes. Sometimes it's about necessity. And thank God that we live in a time in history where work from home jobs are possible, travel jobs are possible, flexible jobs are possible, because these options were not on the table even 20 or 30 years ago. And now you've got a chance to really do something and be there for the person that you love to help them when they need you most.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, there's really just no better reason. So I love this, and I'm really excited to dive in and help you get this thing started. So tell us a little bit about what you are planning to do online and what you have done so far.
Shane has actually helped me be focused, because I came to him at one of our trainings with, I have 3 things I'm working on. And he was very nice and emailed me back or text or in the chat said, focus on one.
I'm surprised that he had that advice for you. Pretty surprising.
My great problem is not focusing on one, but I know when I do it, I become prolific. And that's usually the great battle is the shiny object syndrome when you start your online business, especially. But if you don't do one thing, you can't do the next thing. So you got to do the first thing first.
So
right?
Because of that advice, you have decided
that I am going to take my skills of taking care of amazing attorneys. And I had one fabulous attorney who told me that in her view, she does what only an attorney can do. And her support staff, her paralegals and all, we do everything else. So I've taken that mindset, and it's kind of like, well, I can do all of that for somebody, either an attorney or a business owner. They can focus on what literally only they can do, and I can take care of everything else.
So are you going to is this like a virtual assistant path where you're going to have clients and you're going to be working like flexible from home, but you're going to be taking things off of their plate? So are you going to do the same thing as you were doing as a paralegal? You're just not going to go to the office every day. You're going to have like more virtual clients. Is that what you're doing?
Well, that's how I'm starting out, because I was told I had to focus on one thing.
Perfect. We actually had a member that was on the podcast a few months ago. Her name was Crystal Harrihill, and she created a very, very similar business. What podcast was that, Jocelyn? I don't remember what number it was.
I'm not sure. I'll have to look it up.
But she actually did a virtual. She was she served realtors kind of in the same way, like in the office as support staff. And she had some, things going on. She wanted to go home, and, there were some other things happening. And she was like, and she realized that probably 80% of what she was doing in an office working for a broker or realtor, she could do at home. Like, she could literally contract out to other real estate agents and just do a lot of those tasks for them online. So she just kind of wrote the list, and maybe there was 20 things on the list that she did. And she looked and said, well, I can't do these 4 things unless I'm with them. So she scratched those off. And then that was her package. She just kind of built that out as, I'm going to offer this to serve people. She went to networking events, and she built this entire book of business right from her home or anywhere, as long as she had her computer, that she could do just by eliminating the office work and only focusing on the things that she could do as a VA.
And that is episode 265.
So you can go to fliplifestyle.com/podcast 265. So my point in bringing that up is, like, there is a template for making this happen, which will springboard you to the next thing, which is more passive. Does that make sense?
Yes. And that is actually one of the questions that I had asked you was, can you create reoccurring revenue from a service-based business? And you reassured me, yes, that you can.
Yep, absolutely. All right, Lori, before we dive into the specific questions that you have about your business, let's talk just a little bit about fears or maybe a mindset struggle that has been holding you back. What is worrying you? What's kind of just nagging you in the back of your mind saying, can you really do this?
I think my fears are not extraordinary, which makes me happy because other people have overcome them. But I have a fear of, do I know enough? I've been studying a lot of the different technologies that are used in more of the online world than in an office. I'm very versed in the technology used in an office, but obviously I now need to become versed in online, and which will make people kind of laugh at me, but imposter syndrome. Like, do I know enough? Can I do this? Will I be able to succeed? I have lots of rotten voices in my head telling me that I have never been my own boss, that I don't know what I'm doing, that I won't be able to find anybody. You know, all of the fears that nip at our heels while we step out onto a new path.
Well, I want to say, first of all, after 30 years in this area, if you don't know enough, then I'm not sure anyone else does, Lori, because that's a long time to be in an industry and just, soak up all that knowledge and that information that you have in your head. And, that's really valuable. And I think sometimes people underestimate the value of the things that they know, especially with that much experience. So, I would say, as far as like your expertise and knowledge, I definitely would not worry about that. When I started my library site, I had been a librarian a whopping 4 years and 2 months. Actually, I had been a librarian 3 years when I started the site. So, I just kind of dove in and shared my experiences. And I think people even like to hear that you're a little bit vulnerable sometimes, that maybe you are a little bit scared to put yourself out there. I mean, we say it sometimes. Anytime I do a video or a live training of any kind, I will always start out with that. So that way I don't have to worry about it. Like, people already know that I'm feeling this way.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny how we view ourselves in that way. Like with that imposter syndrome is insidious because it never goes away. Right? It just never goes away. And like, no matter what, because you're always worried about what other people are going to think about us, right? Like, it's not really, do we doubt ourselves? Like, you can look in the mirror and go, what are you talking about? You've been a paralegal for 30 years, right? And the factual, rational part of you says, I can do this. But then you're like, but what if that lawyer thinks I can't? What if that person that contracts me is unsatisfied or doesn't think that it's valuable or whatever? And we still get that. Like, even when we speak at events, like, there's still that moment right before we go on stage where I'm like, do we really need to be out here doing this? Or like when we get interviewed on a podcast that we've heard other people interviewed on, like, we say, man, do we really like belong here? And I had a funny situation. I went to WrestleMania last month because that's what I do. And because I love professional wrestling. And I actually got to go to the Hall of Fame pre-party with all the wrestlers. Okay. So a buddy of mine works for the wrestling organization. His wife wasn't going to go, and he let me go with him. So it was just ridiculous.
So Shane was a date.
I was his date. I was a man's date. Okay. Let's not go down that road. You know what I'm saying? But like, it was crazy because like I was on this bus and I was sitting behind Sergeant Slaughter. And for anybody know, I look over and all these famous people are all around me. But like, it was a really like magnified version of like imposter syndrome, because like everyone else in the room was a wrestler or a family of a wrestler, right? And but it made me feel the exact same way as when I'm about to do a new training. And do I really know enough to train people on this? Or like when somebody asks me a question that I'm sure of, but I'm like, is that the right answer? And it's like, it was this magnified version of, do I really belong in this room? Right? And we've all felt that. And that's natural. And I hate to tell everybody this, but like, it's never going to go away. So like the best way to get over that is just keep doing it anyway. You know, like just keep going. You do belong. We all belong. Our experience is all valuable, especially to people who are less experienced than us, right? Or in your case, if you go out and work for an attorney, maybe an attorney can't afford to have enough paralegals in office, but they could have a part-time paralegal like you working virtually for them, right? And that's extremely valuable.
Thank you. Yes, that's why I said I know people will laugh, but it's still one of the fears.
Everybody's got it. Everybody's got it. You're listening right now, Flip Lifestyle audience. I know you got it. Guess what? You're good enough. Was that old Saturday Night Live skit? You're good enough. You're smart enough, and doggone it, people are going to like you. So get out there and make your stuff.
And it's also being okay with the fact that everyone won't like you.
Yeah.
And there are some people out there who are going to say, well, this is ridiculous and this is the stupidest advice I've ever heard. But to be honest, the most knowledgeable person in the world on any topic will still get that kind of hate.
Yeah,
so,
and they don't know everything either, so it doesn't matter.
So it's all good. Like, you just have to be okay with that.
As for the tech stuff, like this is another one that's, I remember having a great, and I'm pretty good with technology, right? Like I've got a background where I've used computers, stuff like that. Like I wasn't an expert or a programmer or anything, right? But, I did have a background where I dabbled with some HTML and I'd done some things just playing around in college, right? And I remember the technology did scare me to death in the beginning, because when we started having to, I realized I had to build a website and I had to connect it to all these tools, and it was really scary. It was really, really scary because I was like, man, this is all brand new to me. And I think the newness is really the problem, not necessarily the tech, because once you get in to most of these things, it really kind of works like Microsoft Word. Like if you can use a word processor, then you can kind of use WordPress, which is how you build a website, right? And when you start connecting things, it's really just copying and pasting codes into boxes. So it's the challenge is getting over that initial hump that says, I don't know if you can do that, and saying, really, that's only 20% different than the software that I already know how to use, and just kind of diving in and using it. I actually think that people who have never had any technology experience do better when they get into the building of the websites and the doing all the technology things like setting up calendars and schedulers, because they're it's like a kid. You don't know what you don't know, and you don't know what you're not supposed to know, right? So you just dive in and you do it, and you're like, oh, cool, I did that. I learned that. But someone else has to kind of unlearn the fact that they think they can't do it, right? So, technology is the same thing. Keep it as simple as possible. That's the biggest way to overcome that obstacle. Don't listen to what the gurus are doing. Don't listen to what the experts are doing, because they've probably got teams where they've been doing it for a long time and they've already went through the process of figuring it out. But just do it one step at a time, as simple as possible. Start, if you have a website to advertise your services, start with a 1-column blog with a contact form. Don't overcomplicate it, right? And then you can promote that and you can kind of grow over time. Don't try to do too much at once. Does that make sense?
That makes complete sense. And I will say, as somebody who is just starting this and just learning the technology, and I told my husband this, who's in the IT world, and I have told him I will ask him for help, but it's mine and I have to first learn it myself. And I'm sort of stubborn. It's now the technology is at my level, if that makes sense. You don't have to code. I told him with great excitement that it's now, the technology has gotten to my level. It will now be usable for anybody. And I mean, for your audience, we'll probably be able to figure out if I did something for 30 years. I'm not 30 years old. So
we had them going, Lori. You ruined it. We had them going.
And I know people my age can often be a little bit more intimidated by, we're not digital natives and blah, blah, blah. But I just want you to know I'm doing it, and it's now doable, even if you don't know how to code or, speak tech language.
A couple of weeks ago, we had a travel agent on. Her name is Marcy Jennings. And she's a work from home travel agent. That's what she does for a living. That's how she built her flipped lifestyle, works full time by herself on a computer, right? And she doesn't even have a website. She completely advertises. Service-based businesses really lend themselves to just Facebook pages, right? Websites are better because you can put scheduling into it and you can do all these other things, like to plan your meetings and stuff. Like people can click a link, get times with you. But the technology could be as simple as just being public and being present, and you'll be able to do it. We have a form that everybody fills out before they come on a podcast. And you said something really interesting here. That it's hard to stay focused because you get so overwhelmed by the huge mountains of unknowns. And that keeps you from understanding what the next step would be. And as we've talked through these two fears that you have, that's really all any of these fears or obstacles. It's just the fear of the unknown, right? It's just the fear of, what do we do? When we change our price, it's not really a matter if people will pay it or if they won't. It's just unknown to us. Humans don't like the dark corner that you have to turn around and the blind spot and you can't see it, right? So learning to wrestle with the unknown and kind of honor the unknown, because it's all unknown. We're in Jocelyn and I talk about this all the time. We're in totally uncharted territory of anything we ever dreamed possible, right? Like we don't even know what the next level looks like for us. And like that's unknown. And I think that's what holds all of us back at any level, beginner, intermediate, advanced, is like just the unknown of kind of what's next.
Yeah. And it's like I said before, it's just learning to be comfortable with discomfort. And that's hard for a lot of people. But if you can do that, if you can figure out how to solve those problems that seem impossible, like it makes you feel like you can do anything because really you can. All right, Lori. So I know that you've been working through the weekly trainings for the live event, right?
Yes.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about what you have done so far and what your next step is, what your question is for your next step.
What I have done so far is been focused on my one and to let the other brilliant ideas that I have rest in my back pocket for a while. And we had to look for a product to sell or for a lead magnet. And I actually had real difficulty with that. And I think I came up with an idea because I haven't yet done it. I'm one of the ones who did not have it done by Monday. But I was thinking that I can create things to help people be more efficient in their office. I've worked in lots of offices. I've seen efficiencies, and I've seen things that are not. What do you think about that kind of expertise? Do you think that would be helpful?
So are you talking that? Let me ask you a question. Let me define that a little bit. So you want to get leads for your service. Okay.
Because I have none.
Exactly. Right.
I'm starting at zero.
Hey, listen, I promise you're not the only person listening to this podcast that has no lead. Okay? Like a lot of you guys have been listening for 2 or 3 years. And you still have a lead magnet. We'll talk about this. Okay. And that's why, like one of the things we do, like Lori's coming to Flip Your Life Live 2019 in Lexington, Kentucky on September 19th through the 21st. Get your tickets at fliplifestyle.com/live. How'd you like that? But she's coming and we do a weekly training. And I get on every Monday and challenge people to take their next step. I give them a next step. They go do their next step, right? Well, last week's was how are you going to get leads? Like what's your next lead magnet or your first lead magnet? Let's get this thing done. So the key there is understanding who are you going to serve with the core offer with the product. Now, you're doing a service-based thing, right? You want to work from home doing a service-based thing where you can serve people in their office, but you're doing it virtually. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. So you want your lead magnet to give them some tips on efficiencies to make their office better. Okay. Right. With the hopes that they do what? What's the next step after the lead magnet? That they go be more efficient and they realize that you can teach them how to be efficient? Or do you want them to get on a call and try to hire you as, their virtual paralegal?
What a good question. I hadn't thought that far. I was stymied at just even what I could create.
Exactly. Well, here's the thing about lead magnet.
So then the efficiency of having somebody who's a virtual person taking work off of your plate.
Okay. So the lead magnet is the first step of your core offer. Like that's everyone, no matter what you're selling, you get the lead usually by giving them the first step to that, right? So you have to know what the next step is or you're not going to be able to create an effective lead magnet, right? So for example, one of our lead magnets, this is usually what we give out when we go on guest appearances, is we call it the Online Business Starter Kit. It's for people who are totally beginners. And what it is it's a course that helps you come up with your idea. Because if you get an idea, then your next step is to create the idea. Well, guess what? We do in the Flip Your Life community every day. We make ideas become realities and turn them into businesses that make dreams come true, right? So that's the first step. That's what I got to give you. Maybe your first step is you've already done all that stuff and you come to us and you're like, man, my next step is email marketing. And then the next step after that is putting people on my email list. Well, we might give away a course about email marketing with the next thing we sell them as, hey, did you know we also have a course about how to grow your email list? So like that's what you have to think about when you're thinking about these lead magnets at the very beginning is what could I give to someone that would literally make them want to hire me next, right? So maybe it's not something they can do. Maybe it's just a brochure. Maybe it's a list of your services that you provide. Maybe it's, and then the next step is let's set up a call and talk and see if we can work together. Like a lead magnet it can be valuable to just tell people what they're going to get, not just here's something that you can go do for 24 hours. Does that make sense?
Okay. I'm writing notes while we're talking.
We're recording this, so you can totally go
I know, but
but you're ready to take action as soon as you get off the call, right?
I'm a student at heart. We take notes.
Okay, so we're working on a lead magnet, and what Shane says is absolutely true. We definitely have to think about the next steps. I think there are a lot of people out there who don't really think about their next steps, and they have a lead magnet, which is really nice,
which leads to nothing.
Yeah, but if you
lead magnet leads to nothing.
If you don't have anything for sale, then what really is the point of a lead magnet, right? So you definitely need to get that sorted out next.
What would have you ever been on a job interview to be a paralegal?
Oh gosh, yes.
Okay. What do you think is like one of the most common questions that a lawyer asks you when they're hiring you as a paralegal? Like, what is?
You mean beyond the tell me something about you?
Yeah. Like, what do they really want to know? You know what I'm saying? Before they'll work with somebody, and you may not have this question on your head right now.
Oh, I do, because I've had lots of interviews, and I've had to interview other paralegals. So, as you can figure out, in a legal department or in a law firm, it's a very deadline-driven endeavor. And you're often tasked with doing more than is humanly possible each day. So one of the things that everybody wants to know is, how do you handle stress? How do you handle having too much work? How do you handle different priorities? You have different attorneys asking you to all get something done today, all of which will take 3 days. And that answer actually tells you a lot. And the best answer is you talk to them, you communicate, you let them know what is on your plate, so they then are part of solving the problem and helping you decide, not I'm just going to get through it and who needs sleep.
So going back to the efficiency thing that you were kind of drawn to, I would guess that that's why that bubbled up to the surface, right? Because you're like, oh, well, the paralegal's got to be efficient, so I'm going to do something to show them how to be efficient, right? So maybe your lead magnet is actually I'm just going to use our paralegals as some verbiage here. I'm not going to say how I do it, but you might say that. But like how our team gets the work of 3 paralegals done in a day or something like that. And and maybe you could just give them a 1-page workflow of what's it called, Jocelyn, where you ask like yes and no.
Communication guide.
We're
just talking about the communication, like what's the best way to communicate with your paralegal and vice versa, so you can make sure everyone's on the same page and going in the same direction. And
you can have like a little flow chart, like it's like task, yes or no, and it all kind of bubbles and moves around, right? And it just demonstrates that you have clearly thought about this. So the lawyer's like check out our paralegal efficiency system or whatever. This is how we work through problems. This is how I'm able to get the job done, 3 days of work done in a day. This is it. And it's a process that they could implement with their paralegal staff, but really it's an evaluation tool that lets them know, man, this person's thought about this. Wow, we don't do this. Man, I need to bring this into my team, even if it's virtually, because this is amazing, right? And then maybe a part of it, you kind of bend toward the advantages of why it's better to do this with an online virtual assistant instead of somebody in the office or whatever. So you can kind of worm that in there to where the next possible question is, how do I get you on my team? Right? Because that's the next step. That's what you want them to do is let's do some kind of interview. Let's do something virtually. Let's try to make this happen. But that instead of saying, here's 3 ways to organize your desk, right?
Gotcha.
This is no, this is what I do. And this is what I can do for you if you'll just take the next step and talk to me about it, and we'll go forward.
I like that.
Okay. So you're feeling pretty good about that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay. This is the key to building a good lead magnet. Is it's not just jab, jab, right hook. It's not just give the next step and crush it, right? It's not do a lead magnet and we get a 4-hour work week. That's not how it works. It's strategic. What is the end game? What are the 5 steps to get to the end game? And the first step is probably the lead magnet. That's how everybody should be thinking about their business when they're trying to get leads.
Well, and you also have to go into the mind of your ideal customer. What are they really looking for? And what can you do to convince them that you have the answer that they're looking for in that lead magnet?
So your lead magnet could be called ending your annoyance. This is not the right words, but I would say lawyers are often annoyed with the communication breakdowns between them and their paralegal staff because they're stressed out. The paralegals are stressed out, and nobody's talking correctly to each other for expectations. It's just, here, do this, here, do this, here, do this. I got to go to court, right? So I would say that creates frustration or annoyance or something in the office, right? So you would call your lead magnet like, how to stop being annoyed with communication breakdowns in your law office or something.
Yeah, that's not a good name.
That's not a good name, but that's the start of it, right? Like that's the evolution of what it sounds like.
That's the gist. You need to make it a little
sexier or whatever.
Yeah, well, and actually, I can help you here because I actually do know something about attorneys and how to reduce the potential malpractice caused by.
There you go. That's it. That is brilliant. Yes. Now you've scared them and showed them a benefit, which is great copy.
We've talked about the how-to without statement before on different trainings and possibly podcasts too. So whenever you're trying to come up with a name of something really easy to do is how to
avoid malpractice.
Well, how to do their greatest desire without their greatest fear.
So it's how to improve communication. You can also use so that instead of without, so that you can avoid malpractice or something like that, basically.
Yeah, I think that was backwards.
Yeah, or something like that. But you just got to massage it until it works and then try it, right?
Okay.
All right. So we got that working and you're going to get started on that. I can't wait to see how that turns out. What other questions do you have today as you're getting started?
Well, one of the questions that I had was the thing that really excites me about the business you guys are helping us create is having revenue that happens when you're not working. I don't know, how do you say it? It's you're not exchanging. Thank you. You're not exchanging dollars for dollars, right? And I was wondering if you could do that with a service-based industry, since this is the first business I'm going to be focusing on is a service-based business.
Usually when you're in a service-based business, the way that you can make it passive is by building a team. Like, for example, if you can get your systems down for being a paralegal, right, you could hire other virtual paralegals and your main job would be getting leads for them to do the work and you take a cut. It's like kind of like you're the broker and then they would become the realtors or whatever. Does that make sense?
Or like an agency.
Or like an agency, right? Yeah, that's what it'd be called. Yeah. So you basically, you're the figurehead. You're the original paralegal. Let's say you build a book of 5 clients, right? Eventually what you would do is you would maybe get 2 other people under you that you could train to do this virtually from home. You don't have to have an office or anything like that. But then you pass like your clients through to them to do some of the work. And a lot of times the lawyers don't even know who's doing the real work, right? So it's like you can build that out. And what happens is all of a sudden you get 6, 7, maybe 10, maybe you have 2 or 3 people under you. And then you're just at the top. So you spend maybe 10 to 20 hours a week getting leads and marketing it, right? Getting the actual customers. And then you've got a team of support staff doing the actual work like behind you.
Well, first of all, remember that no work is totally passive ever. And I know that you know that.
Mm-hmm.
So even though people make passive income, nothing is 100% passive. Well, I won't say nothing. Never say never. But there are very few things in this world that are completely passive.
There are, like next week, we have a lot of members. So we're going to Disney World next week. We will make money every day we're in Disney World, even though we're not working. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So but we put in the work before it. And if we stop promoting it, it would die. So
right.
The service-based businesses usually follow that like agency, employee model. But you could also create trainings for paralegal staff, right? And you could have courses. Like you don't have to have. Some people think your whole business is passive or it's not, but that's not true. Like our business, like we're here right now working with you, right? We're spending time to do this. Later in the day, we'll be doing other things and we'll make passive income, right? But it's more of a mix, So you could have these clients and then maybe you create a paralegal training system for people to, work efficiently for their staff. And you could train people, once a month. And then you got a little passive income working off those courses on the back. Maybe you build like a 60-40 service-based / passive income business to where you have the hours that you want, but you still put in the hours to make everything kind of grow and support yourself.
But the good news is that you don't have to decide the exact business model you want to do right this second. Nothing is to say that you cannot later change. And you just have to decide what works for you. Like everything has pluses and minuses. Like if you work with yourself doing the services, the downside is that you have to be physically present and
Doing the
kind
work.
of, trading that time for dollars. However, if you go with an agency model later down the road and you start hiring people, then you have to manage people. And so that comes with its own set of challenges. So, those are just things to consider as you start to build your business, but don't let those things stop you. Just because you don't know what it's ultimately going to look like, don't let that be a roadblock for you. Like, go ahead and start with the service-based business if that's what makes sense for you and that's what you know. Then learn from your customers. Hey, how can I support you better in the future? Or I'm thinking about going to a more passive model. This is what I'm thinking. What would you like to see?
Yeah, you'll figure that out as you go. Like all businesses start completely work driven, right? And they become passive later. Like even a course driven business, you're going to be putting so much energy into launches and getting recurring customers and doing things like that it's not going to be totally passive, right? The passive income myth is I set it and forget it, and the ads run and they drive leads and they make sales and it just works all the time, right? Well, if that was true, then all the people that preach passive income would not have podcasts and Facebook ads every week. You know what I'm saying? Like you ever thought about that? Like I had a guy once, and he was trying to get someone on their podcast, and the podcast was talking about courses and all this stuff, and how they just set it and forget it and barely worked and all this stuff, right? And that guy would, every time he tried to get him on the show, he was like, I can't, I'm too busy. And he's like, wait a minute, I thought you didn't work. Right? It's like you look at Tim Ferriss, like someone who writes a book called The 4-Hour Workweek. That dude is constantly on he does 10 hours of his own podcast every week. He's not working a 4-hour work week, right? So like, but the key to passive income is really that you can make money 24 hours because your store is always open, right? Like last night, right before bed, we did a training last night for our Flip Your Life Live attendees. And I don't know what time it was over, about 10, something like that. We started at 9, got done at 10. I stayed up for about 30 or 45 more minutes. Right before bed, somebody signed up for our membership, right? New member. Like I wasn't doing anything. It was just there, and they found the page and they bought it. And now that person will come into the community and they'll talk and they'll attend member calls, and I'll show up for that. And, it's like the circle of life more than it is set it and forget it. So, it will evolve into something that you can control. And right now, the most important thing is you to control when you're working, not necessarily how much work you're doing, right?
True.
Okay, it has been a really fun conversation today. I can't wait to see what you're going to take action on. And on that note, we always like to ask people at the end of our call, what is one thing that you plan to do in the next 24 hours based on all of the awesome things we talked about today?
I am going to work on my lead magnet and my strategy, why I am creating it and what it is leading to.
Love it.
I love it when everything just kind of comes into focus. Isn't that amazing? Because when you know what to do next, you can actually take the next step. And like that's half the battle online, is just beating that unknown of what to do next. Lori, before we go, I want to talk to you a little bit about Flip Your Life Live. Now, you're just dipping your toes into the online business waters. You're a member of the community. That's an awesome, amazing first step of, getting into the trainings, getting to meet some people who are doing this too, people who are just like you, who are just starting out, attending member calls, getting your questions answered. But why did you take the next step? Why did you decide to come to Flip Your Life Live? Like we get a lot of questions from people that say, I'm a beginner. Is this right for me? Is this going to be over my head? Like, what am I doing? Like what made you take that next step and grab a ticket to Lexington's Flip Your Life Live event this fall?
Because actually a handful of things. I like the way you teach. There's no nonsense. There's no sugar. And I know I have never had my own business. I have been a really awesome employee, but there's a difference when the buck stops with you. And I know I have a lot to learn. And I think you guys are going to teach me a lot. And you already have in our trainings. I take copious notes, as you probably could gather. And the other people in our community are teaching me, and it'll be an intensive work. We'll be working the whole time, which is what attracts me to it. I also like being in an audience where somebody's telling me something and I'm learning, but I do best doing. And I know I'm going to get so much done by the time we get to the event, and then even more after, if that makes sense.
It does, totally. Like, that's one thing we really tried to do. You know, when we used to go to live events, we would buy our ticket in January, and then June would roll around. We'd go to the event, but we had never heard from them or talked to them or done anything. And I think I counted it up the other day. We're going to have 17 training sessions before we even get to Flip Your Life Live, right? We do icebreaker sessions where we like introduce everybody to everybody. We get on a big Zoom call, and Jocelyn and I go through and ask people icebreaker questions so that everybody learns a little bit about everybody that's coming, right? And we really tried to build it where you get more value before the event than any other event you could ever buy a ticket for, right?
And I already have. What are we into? End of April?
Yep.
Because each one is so focused, it gives me a thing to work on now.
Yes.
And then next week I will have the next thing to work on. And that just really works for me.
And it's designed to take you through the blueprint before you even get to the event. So you're not just showing up confused and disoriented. You're going to know people. Like I remember last year we looked down from the balcony as people were checking in. Nobody knew we were there. And like we were kind of spying on everybody. And I just saw so many people hug people in line. Like they were in line hugging and taking pictures, and like I've never seen that in an event. Usually you're just in line waiting for your pass. You're just kind of a number as you're checking in. But like we saw this community, like these people coming in and hugging and meeting people in real life for the first time. And that really sets the tone for how our event works too, because it is a work-based event. Usually what we do is we come out, we cover a content, and we say, you've got 30 minutes. Let's get to work. Let's mastermind together. Let's take action on this next step. Then me and Jocelyn come out and say, now that you've wrestled with this topic for 30 minutes, what are your questions? And we do a Q&A, live Q&As with S&J. There's like 8 or 9 of them all through the event. And then we say, all right, now let's do it again. Let's get back into the weeds and let's finish this thing. And then we go to the next topic. And like, that's how the whole event is designed, is not just to sit and soak, not just to, dream big and get motivated. That's a part of it. I might have made a few people cry, and I made a whole lot of people laugh last year. I'm just saying. We're pretty good at that. But the main mission is for you to take action and actually change your life. And I'm just really so glad that you're going to be there, Lori. It's going to be an amazing experience. And I cannot wait to meet you in person, give you a hug.
Oh, I know. Well, I was just thinking, you're not building a community, you're building a family.
We like to call Flip Your Life Live. I'm so glad you said that. I did not prompt you to say that. We actually refer to it as kind of me and Jocelyn and Amber, our live event coordinator. We call it the Flip Your Life family reunion is what we call it, because that's the feel. You're getting, everybody's eating country food, and we're just hanging out, and sweet tea's being poured in every glass. But it really does feel that way to us. And I cannot wait to see you at the family.
Exactly.
All right, Lori, it has been such a fun conversation, and I even hate to see it end. But before we go, I know that you had a special Bible verse and even a prayer that you would like to share with our audience. So we would love to hear it.
Well, my Bible verse is addressing fears. So it's Psalm 34:4. I sought the Lord, and he answered and delivered me from all my fears. But the prayer I say every day, and I have been saying this prayer, it's my private conversation between God and I, ever since my son came into my life. And I pray every day for strength and courage, patience, help. And I always am very grateful, and I always say thank you, because I have been given amazing strength. I have done things I never knew I could do. Courage to face some pretty serious fears. I have much more patience than I ever thought possible. And I have been sent amazing, amazing help. Family, friends, everything. And I'm very grateful.
That is awesome. And that's what's going to carry you to even more success, like when you go forward. I love, what is it the Bible says, fear not 365 times, or whatever they say. But like, God gave us a lot of reasons not to be afraid, because fear is going to try to stop us in whatever we're doing. And we just can't let it do that.
And what I try and do every night is I just kind of give God my fear to take care of while I'm sleeping.
Amen. I'm going to throw an amen out there on the Flip Lifestyle podcast this week. Okay. Well, listen, Lori, thank you so much for your transparency. I know there's a lot of people out there listening that are just starting out, that are facing some of those same fears. Hopefully we overcame those today. I know there's people out there with a lot of challenges in their family, with their children, things like that. And I know that your transparency is really going to help them and inspire them to take action. I love the fact that I don't know the best way to say this, so I'm just going to say it like the way I say things. But like, I love how you don't let the challenges in your life hold you back, right? You know, even with a special needs son, you got these dreams, you got this thing, you want to be there for him. But like, you know, a lot of people are like, well, I got kids. How am I going to go to a live event? You made it happen. I got, you know, financial needs because of these medical issues. So I'm still going to go and invest in myself and get the training that I need to do what I want to do. And I just want to say, especially after talking to you now in person, like, I admire you, I respect you, and I just really appreciate you for coming on the show today.
Thank you. I enjoyed myself. And I learned something. You always teach me.
All right, guys, what an amazing conversation with Lori today. So glad that she was able to overcome some of those fears and figure out her next steps. That's what we're here for, guys. We're here to teach you what you need to move forward. We do that in a couple ways. One is inside of the Flip Your Life community. We would love to have you as a member of the Flip Your Life community. All you have to do to learn about all of our programs, all of our courses, all of our forums, and all of the great things that we do for our members every single month is to go to flippedlifestyle.com/flipyourlife. That's all one word. That's FLIPPEDLIFESTYLE.com/flipyourlife. And you can learn everything about how you can become a member of the Flip Your Life community, how you can start your journey just like Lori is and just like so many other people are inside. And we would love for you to join us and to join Lori so that you can meet us in person and meet her in person at Flip Your Life Live, September 19th through the 21st in Lexington, Kentucky. Tickets are on sale right now, but they are selling out. VIP tickets are gone. General admission tickets are almost gone. Don't miss your opportunity to be at this life-changing event. All you have to do to get your ticket right now is to go to fliplifestyle.com/live, L-I-V-E. That's fliplifestyle.com/live, and you can grab a ticket, and you can be at the next Flip Your Life family reunion with us and Lori and all of the other community members who are going to be there. That is all the time we have for this week. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. We hope that it was helpful to you. Until next time, get out there, take action, do whatever it takes to flip your life. We'll see you then.
Bye.